Thank you. This is Immerse, the podcast and book. We are delighted to have you join us. Immerse is produced by Charlie Morrow, Sean McCann, and Bart Plantinga for Morrow Sound, Vermont, and Helsinki, and Recital Edition, Los Angeles. Immerse.
Sound. Light. Space. Here we go. Okay, so this is Charlie Morrow for Immerse. Robin Sipp, as a Dutch writer, producer, director, and CEO of Mirage3D, Robin is best known for productions like Mars 1001, Dinosaurs at Dusk, Origins of Life, Natural Selection, and Dawn of the Space Age, which was the world's first 3D full-dome film. Sipp is also an award-winning pioneer of special venue 3D cinema, and his Mirage3D is a leading full-dome VR producer, having produced some 20 full-dome shows. He began his professional life as a computer engineer, moved on to become a 3D modeler, and eventually a writer-director. More recently, he has focused on the improvement of live-action capture for domes and the design of new camera rigs for films and full-dome VR productions. I met Robin over a decade ago in Denver, Colorado, when his work was presented by Dan Neefus in the Gates Planetarium at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. Since then, we collaborated on the creation of the planetarium version of feature documentary Moonwalk One on the anniversary of Apollo 11. It has my music and sound. Robin, thanks for joining us on Immerse.
Where go?
Robin, I'm glad that we could meet today, and this is our interview for Immerse, the podcast and book, and you've spent your life working in planetarium business, not your life, but since you're a teenager, and I'm wondering what first got you interested in immersive experiences. What was your inspiring experience, Did it happen like when you were 2 years old or when you went to the Omniversum? But where did all of this start?
Well, it started with a love for space flight from a very early age. I remember when I was very young, my dad told me about the Apollo program. And then I started to ask him questions about it, and he told me about the Russians and that people died in space. And I thought it was all very fascinating. And then at some point he couldn't answer my questions anymore, and I would go to the local library and I got all the books I could find on it and started to memorize a lot of the first astronauts of Apollo 11, 12, 13, etc. And then later I started to study electro-engineering, computer engineering, because I thought it's a step in the right direction to work in the space industry. But then when I was about 18 years old, I visited this space theater, this Omnimax, which they now call IMAX Dome theater in The Hague, which had just opened a few years ago, Omniverse in The Hague, and they had a 23-meter tilted dome, and they showed a space film at that time. And I thought, this is amazing. This is a really cool place to work. So I worked there in my student time, actually, part-time. And then I got my hands on the first digital projector, Digistar 1, the first in Europe. And then I got to do my undergraduate thesis project with Evans and Sutherland in Salt Lake City. So I realized during my study that I really like music. I really like telling stories or educating about space flight, about astronomy, about science in general. And so I thought this is the place where I want to work. I'd like to, make content. I want to make immersive films, educational films for audiences, more so than being an engineer in the space industry. So that's kind of how it started.
Well, thank you for that. I was wondering, now that you have made your life in full dome cinema and immersive experience making, I wondered if you could talk a little bit about this world that you're in, how you work and how you think, and what it is for you.
Well, so after 20 years of running this small company in making full dome films, we're at this very fortunate point that we can almost make a show about anything we like. Well, almost, because it needs to make some commercial sense in the end. We cannot make a show that nobody will license. But so normally I'm very interested in a lot of different science topics, and I can only make a show about something I really care about myself. And so normally I pick a topic that I always wanted to dive more into. Because making a film is many years of research. You need to read all the books you can find about it, find other documentaries about it, do a lot of internet searching, reference images, and get a mental picture of what really happened, or how you really want to portray it. So we're basically, we're taking a subject that we think is also interesting for a lot of theaters, and then it's a long process. Some of these films, from early idea to completion, took 7 years. So you really must love the topic to spend that much time researching it and fine-tuning it. But we don't do a market research and ask people what it is that they would like to see. I mean, one example was, for example, our film Natural Selection about Charles Darwin. A lot of people told me, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that because it has nothing to do with astronomy, and planetariums are mainly going to be interested in astronomy. And secondly, there's a lot of theaters in the United States, in the South, that won't license such a show. But I was a bit stubborn then, I still did it, but it did turn out great, because it was sold over 100 copies, and a lot of theaters in the South, especially in the Bible Belt, have licensed it because they needed such a show in their science center too. Especially there, it's needed a lot. So you shouldn't always do what you're told or ask. The customers often also don't know what they want until they see it. So it's more intuition and follow your own interest, and hopefully other people like that too.
Oh. Once you have a subject and are beginning to build the show, what's your workflow like? How do you visualize it from the final result back to the details of production, or do you think from production to where you can get to, or how do you do it?
So we often start with storyboards first, before the script. And storyboard pictures, or mood board even, the pictures of scenes that should be in there without having a complete idea of the entire story yet. And over the course of a year or so, there's some gaps in there, and it kind of all blends together. So after the storyboard, we make animatics, so that the whole film at some point will be an animatic, with especially important with music, which can be placeholder music, but music is really good for the pace of it. If you don't use music, you often think, this scene takes way too long, especially if there's no narration. But music will allow you to get a sense of feeling. And so we at some point we have a whole film as an animatic, with often a whole soundtrack that we even put temp narration in the sound studio, a whole soundtrack which will be completely replaced later, because a lot will be composed by a composer. But putting temporary music over the animatics is a way to communicate with the composer about feeling and pace, and so we have a temporary soundtrack, and then we get a real soundtrack. But we start with mood board pictures, then with a storyboard, and then with animatics. But there's often some holes in there. It takes quite long until the whole show becomes a unit, and almost in the middle of this process start to add words to it, because I think that if you write a script as a book, you're writing it for people to visualize everything in their head, but a movie visualizes a lot of things already. For example, if like a Russian rocket explodes, you would need to write that in your book that it explodes, but in the visuals you already see that, so you should do the opposite. You shouldn't say it that the rocket explodes, because it's already visual. So you just need to put the words in between the visuals where it's necessary. So I would argue that we don't want to use more than 50% narration in a film. And so a lot of things people already know, and the images explain the story as well. And then you only put the words just to make the bridge to the next scene or to explain the importance of something. But you should also not get into details as how many gallons of fuel there is in a rocket. I mean, the visuals already show that this is a huge rocket. So don't get into those details. Try to minimize, keep it simple, the script. So in the end, you have something that really fits together. So the script and the music and the images all go together, and they cannot be separated from each other. So if you in the end would read the script, it feels like things are missing, and that actually is good, because it's not written to be a book. So that's kind of our little formula, how to get things done. So, but a lot is inspired by music. All scenes are re-engineered on music, and then we are flexible enough to say, okay, we're not going to put any narration there because it's fighting with the music. We wait until we have a chance when the music mellowed out a little bit. So it's a dance between those three, and it doesn't happen in a few weeks. It grows.
Well, then when you begin to work with the large surface of the screen and the experience of being inside of a dome, how does all of your thinking lead to that moment? What has happened in your process since you already know what a dome is like? How do you manage that spatial aspect?
Well, the experience of being in a dome is close to being there for real, right? So, like in real life, if you don't have certain close-ups, you don't have certain cuts, so you try to not cut too much in the edit. You try to really have the audience believe they're standing there for real, and give them time to observe the space. So rule of thumb would be to at least give them 6 seconds to realize where they are, but they need to be able to look around, which this is the set falls apart, Charlie. You want to do that again?
You had that planned.
Because this is a 2-year-old set, and the glue is starting to come loose. No.
That's wonderful. I like that. I love your answer about writing for the experience, because the people really are there this time, and it's not like they're watching a TV or anything, so you can tell that story again.
So actually I had put this in because it was laying on the ground. I put it in there, and of course it fell out now because this set is slowly falling apart. But if I leave it out now, in your edit, you suddenly are missing that that thing. But I guess that's better than it falls out again, right?
You can do this together and make it do exactly what we want it to do.
Keep the ceiling from the first shots, because I'm not going to stand up. Okay. Yeah, so, just ask me again.
Immerse. Sound.
0, 0, 0.
Light. Space. See, when you prepare the movie for the dome, what are the factors that you take into account to make it real in that space?
So a dome gives the impression that you're really there, as if you're really on the ship with Darwin, if you're really at a launch site, because it's 360 degrees. And So it's different from television, where we're used, for 100 years in film, we're used to know that a cut, we're not surprised to see a person walking in a room small and suddenly we see a close-up of that person. But when you think of it very logically, that is really strange. I mean, that's not how real life works. So we try to, with the dome experience, give people the feeling that they're really there, so that they're really next to this scientist or next to this historic event, and we give them time to observe the new scene, like 6 seconds at least, so that they can look around where they are, because the field of view is limited. You really have to turn your head to see the entire dome. So we really try to always tell to ourselves, let's pretend these people are really there. They're standing next to the events, and try to avoid many cuts or fast cuts, try to avoid close-ups. Well, that's not how real life works. So it's a very simple rule. Just try to take these people by the hand and take them on this journey as if they were there.
Well, to close, could you tell me what your favorite scene that you've made or that somebody else has made in a full dome production?
Yeah, that's kind of the goosebump moment. I quite like in another producer's film, the Hayabusa film from Kosaka, the ending scene with the music. It's just, it's really well done that you start to develop a feeling for a mechanical object that traveled so many years through space and is returning to Earth. It's really well, the pacing and the music really gives you goosebumps. And in one of our films, I would say, in Dinosaurs at Dusk, at the very end, we have a scene where the asteroid is going to wipe out all the dinosaurs, and by then, the two protagonists have been really started to like this prehistoric world, and they know today that it's all going to end. It's all going to 70% of them are going to be extinct, and so they're flying away in the scene in this ultralight aircraft through a canyon, which is based on a canyon in Mexico actually, but we have all prehistoric plants there, and then at the last moment they see the biggest flying animals ever, Quetzalcoatl. And earlier on in the story, the actor said that they would love to fly with them, and so basically just before the world gets destroyed, they fly in formation with these Quetzalcoatls, and so they have a V formation, and their ultralight becomes a part of them. So at the end of this film, it's almost like they became one with the pterosaurs or dinosaurs just before they got wiped out, and the mammals survive. And we used the music, Zadok the priest, which is normally used as a coronation anthem for the new English queen or king, and the choir sings "Long live the king, may the king live forever," and they refer to this Quetzalcoatl as the king of all flying animals, and of course he will not live forever. He's actually going to be extinct today, but just before that, they're one with them flying information through this canyon, and I think the music and the visuals work well with it. It's probably one of my favorite scenes. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that, and thank you for taking the time for today's interview. Robin, we'll talk again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome, Charlie. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Immerse is pleased to be sponsored by the esteemed avant-garde record label Recital, run by Sean McCann in Los Angeles, California. Over the past decade, Recital has published both archival and contemporary sound art, sound poetry, and new music. Collaborating closely with Charlie Morrow and the Charlie Morrow Archive over the past few years, McCann and Morrow have published over a dozen vinyl records, CDs, and books from artists such as Dick Higgins, Alison Knowles, and Tardos, Derek Bailey, and Morrow himself. Last year, a wonderful sound poetry box set and book edition celebrating the 1980 International Sound Poetry Festival was published to critical acclaim. As a listener of Immerse, Recital offers you a 20% discount off of your next purchase from them. Please visit recitalprogram.bandcamp.com and enter the promo code Immerse to claim your 20% discount.
Thank you. This is Immerse, the podcast and book. We are delighted to have you join us. Immerse is produced by Charlie Morrow, Sean McCann, and Bart Plantenga for Morrow Sound, Vermont, and Helsinki, and Recital Edition, Los Angeles.
Immerse. Immerse. Immerse.
Immerse. Immerse. Immerse. Immerse. Immerse. Immerse. Immerse. Immerse. Immerse. Immerse. Immerse.
An empty shell to fall back into the sea.
This is the end.